Leo Varadkar says he wants to reward those who work, but it seems to me that politicians do very little work and get a hell of a lot of money. I mean, Leo Varadkar himself is on 190,000 a year. That works out at over 500 quid a day. Yep, 500 a day. Most workers in Ireland after tax wouldn't come out with that in a week. Not to mention people on low wages, on lower contracts, or people on the dole. It's also 60,000 euro more than Vladimir Putin earns, and Russia's a much bigger place than Ireland. But the Taoiseach's not the only one who's very well paid for doing very little. Irish TDs are also very highly paid when compared to other countries. Our TDs are on about 90 grand a year. This compares to German TDs who are on just over 100 grand a year. And yet Germany has a much bigger population than Ireland. Spanish TDs, for example, only get about 30,000 a year. And in Bulgaria, they only give their TDs 18. But it's not just while they're in the Dáil that TDs are very well paid. They're also really well paid when they retire. From 2011 to 2014, we paid out 65 million in pensions to TDs. Now everybody's entitled to a pension. You work your whole life, you pay tax your whole life, then you're entitled to support in your old age. But the amount of support we're giving the TDs is just ridiculous. I mean, Bertie Ahern alone got 726,419 euro from us. He also, in 2011, got a lump sum of 159,000. Brian Cowan, in the same 3 years, 2011 to 2014, got 726,367 euro. What they got in 1 year is more than a person on the average industrial wage would make in a decade. The total we're paying out is over $1 million a month. And many TDs, when they retire, can get a triple pension. They get a pension for being in the Dáil, they can get pensions for being MEPs, they can get pensions for being in the Senate. Surely, if working class people, after spending a whole life slaving away, get a measly state pension of around 200 quid a week, and are expected to live on that, why the hell are TDs being rewarded so extravagantly? But TDs are also rewarded in other ways. I mean, you look at Michael Lowry. Michael Lowry was handed a big brown envelope with a big wad of cash in it by Dennis O'Brien. Liam Lawler, Bertie Ahern, the list goes on and on. Countless politicians, because they have access to political power, are courted by people who want economic power. But the economic elite, the rich, also reward politicians for playing the game. They give them seats on their boards when they finish their job. I mean, Fianna Fáil TD Joe Walsh, who was Agriculture Minister, ended up on the board of Cork firm SWS. It then turned out that he used his position on the board to win that company 11 million in fees. I mean, Brian Cowan, when he finished his stint as our drunken Taoiseach, was appointed onto the board of Topaz. This is when it was still owned by Dennis O'Brien. Topaz owed millions to Anglo-Irish Bank, which meant Dennis O'Brien owed millions to us. But he secured a deal and got a 27% cut on those loans. But Dennis O'Brien wanted Cowan on the board of Topaz because Brian Cowan knew how the Irish state worked and had connections. And guess what? Topaz won a contract. They got 20 million to provide fuel for the prison service and the Office of Public Works. But the political system that we live under is just the window dressing of an unequal economic system. This is bound to be an inherently corrupt and corrupting system. I mean, you look at the USA today. There's over 15,000 lobbyists in the USA to throw money at the politicians to get legislation that favours the rich. The lobbyists in the USA alone spend about $2.6 billion a year. So there's a whole system through which the rich try and buy politicians. In Ireland, PJ Mara, who used to be Charlie Hy's sidekick, set up a huge PR firm. Fianna Fáil TD Jim Glennon got a job with Edelman PR. The Register of Lobbyists revealed that Simon Coveney, the last Minister for Housing, met the vulture firms 65 times in 1 year. But do you think for 1 second that Fine Gael allowed those lobbying on behalf of the homeless access? So what's the alternative then? Well, first of all, put all public representatives on the average wage. We also need the right to recall politicians who lie to us. They need to know that they serve the people and not the elite. But the difficulty is, as long as we live in an economic system where people like Dennis O'Brien can have 3.9 billion, while the rest of us live in poverty, people like O'Brien are going to be able to corrupt the political system. In the end, the only way that we can have a decent political system, a political system that serves the people, is to take that wealth off the rich.